what I'd like to do today is provide an update that was requested by the board last summer when you approved the new tuition schedule for the system. You included a set of conditions that you expected to be reported on within the year by UH Mānoa in particular, and I gave you a mid-year update on this in, I think, January. So this will be the one-year update. And there were 5 of these, we variously call them conditions or mandates. I will say that in working through these with the Mānoa team and the interests of the Faculty Senate, the deans, the vice chancellors, these have been really fully integrated with the UH Mānoa strategic plan, some of the items that Chris mentioned as well, and with a set of work groups that were proposed by the deans and some of the projects that the previous interim chancellor had embraced during his 2 years in the role. So while I'm reporting on them in the format that you had requested, these really are fully integrated into the Mānoa path forward for the campus. So the first one was called Alternative Financing of Repairs. Such has been done at the community colleges for performance contracting and energy management. I'm not going to really say much about that right now because, as it happens, this was on the agenda for the Planning and Facilities Committee earlier, or last month, 2 weeks ago. We did not get to it. We were out of time, so we have a comprehensive update on this item from Vice President Gouveia later listed on the agenda. I will just say that we have awarded a contract for a major PV construction on the Mānoa campus, and we have an RFP on the streets for energy savings performance contract, and she'll say more about those 2 projects. So we definitely have progress on those. The second one was the area of enrollment management. I will say that facing a 0% tuition increase in the next fiscal year, coupled with declining enrollment, and at UH Mānoa, enrollment has declined for 5 straight years, and more worrisome is that it has declined at an accelerating rate in each of those 5 years. The percentage decline was greater than the decline in the year before. So we've lost about 10% of our student enrollment in the past 5 years as this has accelerated. This obviously puts financial stress on the campus, and it's both a concern because it's our job to educate students, but it's also a concern as it impacts the campus, as tuition makes up almost half of the campus operating budget. So the work in this area has been chunked into 2 parts. One was what I'll call urgent action to try to eliminate the decline for fall 2017. And that has been a work group to help us understand what do we have to do to try, and the ambitious goal I set before them, I will say the team hasn't fully accepted that we're going to do it yet, but the goal is to hold flat for fall 17, i.e. stop entirely the 5 years of decline. The principal way we've done that is through an enrollment management action team that meets weekly. What we have learned is that our efforts at enrollment management at Mānoa are spread across multiple offices that report to multiple vice chancellors and assistant or associate vice chancellors, and there are pieces of the recruitment and retention challenge that literally live in every academic department on campus. I think that has become very clear as we've worked on a concerted effort to save enrollment really for the fall. And I shared some of the results in January around what we're doing in recruiting, some of the work we're doing around retention. So let me just update you rather than repeat any of that. I'm pretty sure it's in the minutes, and then talk a little bit about the second part of it. As of the last weekly report, and we look at weekly data now, our freshman deposits are up about 7%. Our transfer deposits are up about 7%. Our other deposits are up about 11%. This is year over year. I don't have trend data, sorry, Regent McInerney at this point. Total deposits are up over 7%. So the deposits mean these are students who applied, were accepted, and gave us a deposit to say they intend to come in the fall. Our graduate application numbers are up, but there's still caution. And the reason there is still caution and nobody's declaring success, one is the area of summer melt. So this is the students who say they're going to come, but over the summer make other plans. So we have a concerted effort through email, text, phone calls to reach out to the students and to try to overcome any summer melt. The second area is that the transfer numbers tend to be point-in-time numbers that are a little bit unpredictable, and we do get a fair number of false positives on those. So even though the numbers are up, we're not confident yet that that will result in more transfer students. I will say areas that we have identified for attention, it was a little bit late to bring in a whole lot of new applicants by the time we got into this in the spring. One is transfer students within our own community colleges, and I'm happy to report that we have engaged a collaborative effort at last with Mānoa, the Mānoa core team, working with the community colleges. And this is an area where our performance funding rewards both community colleges and our four-year universities for each transfer from a community college into a four-year campus. I will also say we've noticed that a disproportionate amount of the enrollment decline at Mānoa has been in graduate students, not undergraduates. And so we're looking at what we have to do about that. And in particular, more of that has been at the master's level rather than at the PhD level. And that's of concern. In particular, master's students tend to pay tuition more than PhD students, who are more likely to be graduate assistants and have tuition waived. So that's on our radar for the Phase 2 effort. So the Phase 2 effort is about implementing an integrated campus-wide data-driven strategic enrollment plan. And that was put on the back burner while focusing on fall 17 numbers. So now, as we're focused on summer melt for fall and preventing it, we're looking at assessment of the initiatives we put together. There was a new scholarship program I talked to you about in January to try and retain students who were most at risk of not returning for their sophomore year. And we are looking at how to put in a plan, probably bringing in external help. We're a little late to the party in understanding integrated strategic enrollment management. So whether we bring in a peer group or a consultant is as yet unclear. But we think they can help us with both the strategies and tactics that we deploy. But I will say it's also pretty clear to me that our organization is not supportive of an integrated and strategic approach. And I'll come back to that when I talk about one of the other conditions. But we have definitely identified a number of initiatives that we know we need to undertake that we can get advice on. One is a tuition sensitivity analysis. One is coordinating our financial aid, which is currently distributed by multiple offices, including every department that gives out the foundation aid. If it's for a botany student who graduated from a Hawaiʻi high school, that's managed by the botany department rather than as part of our centralized financial aid program, which we can definitely be more strategic than we are today. We're ramping up our marketing. We've come a long way and there's more we can do. And then we have targeted specific recruitment groups that we know we can do better. In the retention side, and again, our retention numbers are nowhere near where we need to be. We are still losing 25% or so, and that's a pretty steady number of our freshmen who do not come back as sophomores. I'm told that it's really hard to get that number above 85, but we have a lot of room between 75 and 85% to work with there. And we've identified a number of strategies, including systematically surveying those who leave to understand why they leave. This fall, for example, would be building up a new week of welcome to welcome our students. We disproportionately lose our mainland students who tend not to participate in a new student orientation program over the summer. So that's just an example of the kinds of strategies that we're looking at. What is perhaps most interesting, and I thank Chris for mentioning it this morning, is there is real excitement among both faculty and administrators like deans to pitch in and do this together. And I would say until about a year ago, it was believed this is something that people in Vice Chancellor's office are responsible for. And I think everybody on campus, from faculty in the classrooms to deans who are helping push new programs that will attract students, everybody understands it's something we need to do together. Again, both because it's our job and also to financially support the campus. The goal I've set is to return to 20,000 students by 2020. That should not be unachievable. That gives us 3 years to make up 5 years of loss, basically. The third area that you challenged us is around the area of developing a UH Manoa campus master plan that is based on a study of current space utilization and incorporates the findings of the integrated high-level system-wide academic and facilities plan. I won't repeat that in full. I think most of you were at the Planning and Facilities Committee meeting, and Vice President Gouveia provided a full update. If you were not there, I encourage you to look at the materials that were posted online. She did manage to fit into the time available an update on the first comprehensive space survey that has ever been undertaken at Mānoa, literally walking through all of the buildings to understand the spaces, who's in them, who owns them, so to speak, and how they're being used. And that then becomes the space baseline for a new Manoa campus physical plan. And again, we had the consultants who were helping us with that program at the Planning and Facilities Committee meeting, and the goal there is to translate the integrated academic and facilities plan for Manoa into a phased physical improvement plan for the campus. And we are engaging the faculty, administrators, and students into that planning process, which is kicking off with some full days of activity this month, now that it's June. And we have not done this kind of a plan, certainly for decades, if ever, really looking at it comprehensively. We do believe we can lay out what has to be done over the next 20 years. It will be dependent on resources, but we hope that with the vision, that will help us achieve the resources. And part of it will be identifying opportunities for public-private partnerships and other land monetization strategies. The fourth area you asked Mānoa to look at and report back on was internal academic restructuring and redesign of Mānoa to enable the campus to move forward as a modern research university focused on holistic 21st century needs of the state of Hawaii. So the strategy there was to work with some mini retreats with campus leadership, again, including the Manoa SEC was invited to participate in all of the retreats we've conducted. And we also based that on a set of data which had not been collected since 2009 to understand the actual numbers for each department and college at the campus, and how many people are inside there, how many students are they educating, and we're beginning to pull in the new space data, the research data as well. I have to say that when I first went into this, I looked at it as a numbers and efficiency program. And my colleagues at Mānoa encouraged me to try to be more inspiring by talking about what we could achieve that would be better. And it doesn't mean there aren't efficiencies, but nobody wants to be reorganized as part of an efficiency initiative. But people are willing to talk about reorganization if they believe it makes them part of a more inspiring research and education mission. And it turns out to be true. Which makes it all the better. So I will mention to you out loud the reorganizations that we are looking at very specifically. One, this will not be a surprise to any of you, but we are looking at some of the smaller schools. One of those is travel industry management. Many discussions over many years about it. It is tiny. It is very efficient in terms of undergraduate delivery. So that's an example, but we have a world-class school of business, the Scheidler College of Business, and it is not engaged with Hawaii's major business, which is hospitality. And this is a huge opportunity to leverage the strengths of our Scheidler College of Business with our strong travel industry management programs and pull them together. And Those of you who have been on the board for a while will remember Regent Emeritus Chuck G, and I'm happy to report that I had lunch with him to discuss it with him and understand the concerns that will come forward, and I think he's open to those discussions, which is a breakthrough. A second area we're looking at, one of our other small schools, is architecture. The dean has indicated his interest in stepping down from the deanship, and we are looking at a new way of thinking about architecture as a cornerstone of what is called the built environment. And the other large program we have that's focused on the built environment is civil engineering. And it may not have seemed natural to many of you to think about things that way, but it turns out conversations with architecture and engineering are going quite well. And so that's ongoing. A third one is a merging of two of the arts and sciences schools, language, linguistics, literature, and arts and humanities. A set of discussions took place a couple years ago but stalled, and as part of that discussion we're looking at the School of Pacific and Asian Studies, which is also one of our smallest schools. And by small I mean these are schools that have a dean and potentially have as few as 15 or fewer instructional faculty, which is not even a big department in many of our colleges. I will say that as these discussions are underway, we are encouraging permeability of the discussions. That means that SPAs may not actually be a fit for LLL and arts and humanities, but there may be areas of social sciences where SPAs would be a good fit. SPAs also has some of our international education programs that may be a better fit within some of the vice chancellors for student affairs and academic affairs programs. So while we're starting with some of these core ideas, the discussions are very permeable. Our Research Advisory Board, which Vice Chancellor Bruno reported on, is expected to comment on the ORU structures that we have, which you've asked questions about. So we're looking forward to hearing from them. But we are also, as I mentioned last month, I guess 2 weeks ago at BNF, we are looking at the new tuition distribution model to achieve some integration as we have more of our research faculty engaging in teaching and have dollars follow them as they increase that. This is not a program just for the academic colleges, and so the Chancellor's office, we are internally looking at our structure as well, and we've had vibrant discussions among the Vice Chancellor offices and Chancellor offices. We are looking at a couple of ideas to drive that. One is, as I mentioned, enrollment management is, in my view, too disparate, so we're looking at how to focus those efforts. A second is to fully integrate research and education across those two vice chancellorships. I will just give you one example that the roughly 17 academic deans and directors report to 3 different places within the Manoa Chancellor's office. 2 report to the Chancellor, several report to the Vice Chancellor for Research, and most report to the Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs. So we believe all of the deans and directors should probably report to the same place if we're going to integrate these missions. We are also looking at shared administrative services, and in IT we had this saying of we should eat our own dog food in the IT organization. If we're rolling out new software, we should be willing to use it. And so we're going to roll out shared administrative services in the Chancellor and Vice Chancellor's office first as we look at how that might provide improved services across the academic units moving forward as well. So our timeline for these is I promised repeatedly to the SEC to not do surprise them with reorganizations over the summer. But we are also not taking the summer off, so we will be continuing intensive discussions over the summer. Our expectation is to go into detailed design in the fall after the faculty have returned, including the creation of formal proposals to go through the board process for reorganizations. And our goal is to adopt reorganizations in the spring that we can put into effect in July 2018. So it's ambitious, but I think achievable, and it's easier to do these things on fiscal year boundaries when we juggle the dollars and things moving forward and not doing it in the middle of a fiscal year. Finally, the last of the 5 conditions or mandates was looking at budgeting and resource planning on dollars, positions, and space to focus on overall campus priorities. And again, I won't go into detail because we covered a lot of this in Budget and Finance 2 weeks ago. We are implementing the tuition allocation model on July 1. Phase 1 does not shift dollars. It puts us in a position where dollars moving forward will follow units based on faculty who are teaching and attainment of graduates and number of majors. So that will, as we grow enrollment back to 20,000, the dollars that come in will follow the places that are most contributing to that regrowth of enrollment. We have implemented this year centralized position control for the entire campus. It turned out to be surprisingly easy and welcome after all of that. And the dean's requests go into the vice chancellors for approval based on, when we look at the data that we now have available and the campus strategies for growth. We will be talking about some of the other budget strategies when Vice President Young gives his presentation. But in terms of management of dollars, we do have an aggressive number of ideas on how we will be managing resources. And again, in terms of space, the work that we've done to develop the baseline data and then use that for planning moving forward. And that is part of embracing the principle that you approved last month in the IAFP, which is that all space is the university space. It does not belong to the faculty member, department, or college, and we plan to manage space accordingly. So that's an overview, and again, as you can tell, it has been integrated into the work we have been presenting to you, including the Mānoa financial update that took place 2 weeks ago and the budget strategy document that you'll hear later in this agenda, as well as the energy management.